In this module, we're going to talk a little bit about risk and liability, and particularly how that can present itself in your activities as a student organization at Brandeis. A little overview of what we'll talk about here is the acknowledgement of risk and waiver of liability, what that is, and the different types of that waiver. We'll go into some details about club travel. We'll also talk about sports and fitness club policies, our alcohol policy, and briefly about outdoor events. So first off, there are 3 different types of risk and liability waivers that the Department of Student Engagement has created. These are all very similar, but have different purposes. The first is for one-time events and travel. So what this means is, let's say you're an organization whose mission is not something that includes frequent travel. You generally, as an organization, stay on campus and do not engage in any sort of high-risk activities. But now your organization wants to go off campus, or you want to go do something like bungee jumping. You're going to need a one-time event waiver for that type of activity, not only because the activity is high risk, but also because you're traveling off campus. When you create this event in campus groups, the program specialist or administrator of the campus groups platform who approves events is going to see that and determine on a case-by-case basis whether or not your event will need a waiver. If it is found that it does, for one of those reasons I mentioned, like traveling off campus outside of Waltham or engaging in some sort of high-risk activity, we're going to determine that you need to have a waiver. And so what we will do is create an individualized waiver for that event, send it to the club leaders, who we will then expect to distribute it to your club members. The second type of risk and liability waiver is for groups that frequently travel. This is a large part of the mission and purpose of your organization. We created what we call a blanket waiver for these organizations. That means that your members will just have to sign this once, and it will cover all events and all participation you do with that organization for the entire year. We'll be sending this out to organizations that we know travel frequently, but this will also be available on the homepage of campus groups. And we expect you as club leaders to share this with all of your members. We'll be doing frequent checks for both these organizations and our sports and fitness organizations to make sure that all the people listed as members in your group have filled out one of these waivers. So that gets us to our third type of risk and liability waiver, which is for our sports and fitness clubs. These organizations have slightly modified language on the waiver that replicates what our athletic teams and club sports also have in their waivers. Similar to the frequent travel organizations, these groups will be expected that all members complete and sign the risk and liability waiver at the beginning of each academic year. It will then cover you for the entire duration of that year and everything you're doing with that organization. A little note about that is that there's a contingency for if there are any minors that are a part of your organization. We understand that sometimes there are students coming in who are under 18. They should still complete all the required fields of that waiver, but they should then select yes to the question on the waiver that says, are you a minor? When you do this, there will be a couple of questions that populate that ask to fill in the name of the parent or guardian and their email address. Once they do that, the waiver will not be automatically approved. It will go to the Department of Student Engagement, who will then reach out directly to that parent or guardian. They will be sent a separate form to complete, and once they've done that and we receive their approval, we will then approve the student's waiver, and they'll be able to engage in that activity. Getting more into club travel. So the Department of Student Engagement has developed a travel policy that divides travel into 4 different tiers. The first tier of travel is for day trips or one-time events. The second is for overnight and weekend trips. The third is once we get past that weekend mark, and these are more than 3-day trips, so generally week-long, spring break, alternative service, those kinds of things. And then there's also international travel, which is a whole other can of worms you open when traveling internationally. I won't get too into the nitty-gritty of each of these because the details about student engagement's travel policy are written and shared in the student organization handbook. But basically, for every single type, every tier of travel, certain things will be true. You'll always be required to assign a trip organizer. This is the one person who is our point of contact and we know is making sure everything got done for the trip. That person should complete the travel form. We have different deadlines for the different tiers, but they always will need to complete that travel form. Additionally, travel must be posted onto campus groups. Each participant of that type of travel will be required to complete the risk and liability waiver. And then the trip organizer should be the one who's really ensuring that all the participants have completed that waiver. There are different requirements based on the different tiers. Like you can see at this point for one-day trips, it's just 10 days before that we ask you to complete some of those things. 5 days for the waivers and no advisors are generally necessary. For overnight and weekend trips, it gets pushed a little farther out. Those different documents are required 3 weeks before, and participants should complete the waiver 10 days before. Again, generally no advisors, although depending on the activity that may change. For extended trips, we ask 1 month out that the travel form is submitted and posted on campus groups. And additionally, for this level, the trip organizer should meet with the student engagement staff member before they travel. For service organizations, this may be one person. For other organizations, maybe another person, depending on who their advisor in student engagement is. Again, with this, we will, for extended trips, generally require at least one advisor to be present. This could be any faculty or staff member at Brandeis, and your organization should plan to pay for their accommodations. This should be something that you're prepping for during marathon and requesting funds for. For international travel, we ask that you complete things quite far in advance. The travel form and campus groups posting should be done at least a semester before, as well as meeting with a student engagement staff member, because there are a lot of different requirements and hoops that have to be jumped through for international travel. Again, the trip organizer should be on top of everything. Participants should complete the waiver 1 month out. And for international travel, without any sort of change to this policy, there should be 2 advisors present on any international travel. As you can expect, all U.S. students should have a valid passport, and international students should really work with ISSO, the International Students and Scholars Office, in order to understand their visa requirements and any other travel restrictions that may be in place. Moving on from travel to talking a little bit about our sports club policies. So all this information has already been shared with sports and fitness organizations, but digging in a little bit more to that, and this is also written in the student organization handbook. A few requirements are that, as mentioned, all members should fill out that acknowledgement of risk and waiver of liability. At least 2 leaders should attend training each academic year in conjunction with student engagement and athletics. If there is an injury at any game, practice, or lesson, you should fill out the incident report form, which can be found on campus groups and in the handbook. And if necessary, please call 911 or public safety. If you are an organization that competes against other universities, there are also additional requirements, such as sharing your game schedule at least before the beginning of the semester, posting your games on campus groups so that we know about them, completing the travel form for any off-campus travel or games that you have, and then BEMCO or an athletic trainer will be required at any home games. And if you request them and they're not available, you can work with student engagement staff to figure out how to make sure you're covered for your home games. The alcohol policy on campus is the same for across campus and comes from a university level. So any alcohol that is going to be present at an event for your organization has to go through university events. You cannot be buying or providing alcohol from anywhere other than Brandeis Catering. There are 3 locations on campus that already have a liquor license and are able to provide alcohol. So those are USDAN, the Faculty Club, and the Stein. Any other locations, it may be possible that you might need to purchase a liquor license, and you'll be able to work with University Events to figure that out. Brandeis Public Safety is going to be required at any events with alcohol, and they will be carding, and that is without question at any event with alcohol. Finally, a little bit of detail about our outdoor events. So there's not exactly a ton of extra risk that comes with outdoor events, but there are certain requirements or things you really need to think about if you want to be outside. These are the nature of the event. So what are you going to be doing? Which location exactly is it going to be? What time of day? This is really important because sometimes noise permits are required, and the city of Waltham regulates outdoor events that have amplified sound. They cannot go past 10 p.m. There may be additional facility needs that happen if you're hosting an event outside, as well as requirements for what can or cannot be set up or done in the common outdoor spaces on campus. And finally, weather. Having a different weather location and plan is something you'll have to work through with University Events and can end up costing more money. So this is a little bit about risk and management and liability and some general just policies that student organizations should be thinking of. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, reach out to student engagement. Thank you.